Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Send me and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Let me get this out the way just because Doris doesn't like it. And anytime during this Jet Black Airways flight, you may press the Cash App button. It is preferable to Jet Black Airways that the bulk of you punch in small amounts as opposed to any ones of you punching in large amounts, because the sound of the Cash App notification is true music to my ears. This is a special message because this is the Black Manosphere show of the week. This is a funeral for Western black love and a eulogy for the Western black man. You may think that because of the title, this is a notice of demise of the Western black man, but this is not the case. For one, this is not a live, this is a premiere you were hearing. And this premiere/upload is actually literally what I entitled it. The funeral is for Western black love, and the eulogy, the verbal spoken out loud recognition of and recollection of good deeds and good attributes, is not due to the funeral of the Western black man. See, eulogy does not mean funeral. It is a part of a funeral in many cases, but a eulogy means just that, verbal, out loud, spoken recollection and recognition of the good deeds and attributes of someone. It literally means a chronicle of good or a study of good. There's a custom that we're developing in the Black Manosphere, despite the infighting. And it is not only due to the maturity of our adulthood. We can spread this far beyond the Black Manosphere itself and into the wider culture, and that is the custom of complimenting and giving each other our flowers while the recipients are alive to smell them. We can eulogize each other without funerals. And granted, I'm not talking about insincere flattery, and I'm not talking about complimenting people only to their faces. I'm including complimenting people when they're not there. Even so much as just refusing to assume the worst about people and giving benefits of doubts. Because we have been surrounded by two enemies that merely insist on doubting the benefits. We have faced many adversities, and not only did we not surrender and give up, but many times we did not even lose. When we were supposed to, by all logical expectations, we did not lose. That said, let's look at why it is that we haven't made this eulogizing of each other a custom amongst our people in general already. It's not that any mother or aunt or grandmom really spanked us as children for saying nice things about another black male while growing up, but as we got older, sisters reproductively rewarded antisocial behavior instead. And we know this, which is why it is that many of us have what the Reverend Brother Pastor Deacon Dr. Edward Allen Anderson rightly refers to as the Highlander Syndrome. There can be only one. And as he pointed out in his recent upload, in the end, the prize was that you could conceive and reproduce. You got to grow old as well. It became understood among us that being verbally nice to other black males meant that sisters would intimately boycott you because it was corny. And if you wanted to be a chaste man, well, you could hang that up too, because what they were going to do was make you celibate for life instead of a chaste husband, unless you stepped out on black women, which moms and aunts, as well as sisters we didn't know, raised and socialized us to not do. You, black men, Eastern and Western alike, have faced a lot of discrimination for no good reason at all, unless it would have justified the same levels of discrimination against others based on race, and well, It never did to the exact same extent, intensity, and duration combined. You Western black men, and some of you from some parts of the continent too, have faced another adversity from the same women from whose wombs we collectively come. Somehow they went beyond the normal survival mechanisms that many women might have to either ingratiate themselves to conquerors or to at least survive their conquest. Oh no. You had to face them even so much as inviting them in as guests while treating you as unworthy of them from jump even before conquest, to the extent sometimes they enabled conquest. Of course, I'm not referring to all sisters on the continent, obviously. That would be impossible. I am unapologetically and absolutely referring to those in matriarchal and even in toxically matriarchal times and places. Dahomey was on that excrement, and we can see what happened. The Yoruba ruled them from the Oyo Empire, and they were hard on the people that later overthrew them and became the Dahomey kingdom. But the Dahomey women seem to be on a similar overreaction to the Oyo experience as the current-day Western Anglophone diasporan women with their whole machismo and demands of unrealistic machismo and invincibility from us men, while they mislabel that real manhood. If you a real man, then bullets won't hurt you. Look at when Nzinga was queen of her people in either Angola or the Congo. The fact is she wanted to do what men do. She wore men's clothes, called herself king, had male concubines, dressed them in women's clothes, referred to them as male wives, and then still had the hypocrisy to put two of them to duel to death so that the winner/survivor could sleep with her. If they were her wives or concubines, as she called them, meaning that they were women in her eyes, why did she then have them fight to the death for her funky crotch every time? Every time a man gave her an orgasm, he had to kill someone first. Does that sound familiar at all? So on the continent, while it's a good place to go as long as you know where you're going and you know where to avoid the matriarchy and the gynocracy, there are pockets and times where gynocracy held sway and got out of hand. To this day in Sudan, there is a saying the women like to repeat, that the real men all died in some battle in the late 1800s against the British. Sudanese women aren't even disrespectful to their men like that. But they see their men as lacking, while even men and women of non-black Arab countries look at the Sudanese men as examples of real manhood. They say Sudanese men are just, fair, brave, honest, and reliable. Now, while they'll also say that the Sudanese are lazy, that's actually something that the Sudanese will say about themselves in jokes. But to be fair to a fair group of people, what I've observed is that Sudanese will work in proportion to their salaries. If you need them to work hard, just pay them well. That sounds fair. And the thing is, while sisters in the diaspora in the New World are a mix of different ethnicities of Africans, they've taken the most toxic and misandric ways from back home, different parts of back home, and combined them into what we see from them right now. You have had to face this, black man in the Anglophone New World, and some of you in some parts of the continent. Still, you have done well overall. You've done far better than expected, and even better than what many of us knew we did. We ourselves thought we were incarcerated more than enrolled in colleges and universities. We ourselves thought we were deadbeat dads and absentee fathers, and we thought we were criminals more often than law-abiding citizens. We thought we were gangsters more often than studious students and scholars. We thought we were Tarzan chasers back home on the continent more often than we were civilized. We thought we were every negative depiction of us on the big screen, and we thought so largely because we were told this up close by our own adult female relatives in many cases who we trusted naturally. We even thought that we were supposed to be dogs. Failing to overlook that sisters themselves not only rewarded doggishness in the men that they sexually wanted already, but if you were not acting like a dog and you were black, they sexually boycotted you. They not only reinforced these stereotypes because Oprah and Zaddy said so, but they sexually boycotted black men who insisted on being better and not making these stereotypes true. You can't respect a woman who chooses like this, but they then demand that we respect that, and even so much as call us race traitors, I should say, if we don't. And they don't want us to respect them for being respectable. They actually demand that we respect them for the very reasons of being unrespectable. They want us to respect them for public nudity, twerking, studying, and abortion. In chastity, while also having a stank attitude. Meanwhile, they actually feel embarrassed for choosing respectable men, or even just light-skinned men for that matter. So you see, this funeral for one is actually the eulogy for the other already. It's hard for me to discuss one without the other. It's because of what Western sisters pick and demand in men. The Western black love is dead already. When you think about it, it is race-loyal black men who have the worst reproductive options in the Anglophone West, and you can't even fully understand that until you see how they sat with Nick Fuentes, regardless of the nationalities of their parents. If you talk pro-black, sisters can't respect you enough to want you unless maybe you become famous enough like Ungawa Dashiki Tunde Johnson for some to want you. You can conceive some children, but even then you can't afford to marry, and your kids are in the care and tutelage of the attitudinal moms if she didn't abort them. You can't win. We're not allowed to raise black children that the black population actually needs or from whom the black population can benefit because Mama Matriarch won't allow it, with the backing of Zaddy and the family courts. So notice how despite hypergamy when it comes to finances and height and muscles and prison records and tattoos and baby mamas, in which they're willing to compete with us just to disqualify us anyway, they never seem to practice hypergamy regarding traits that could cost them custody in family court hearings like parenting skills. Do not dare exceed her in this, especially in a way that the courts can see it and can't deny it. You might have to make more money than she does, especially if she already has kids, for another man that is made less than her. But if you're going to be a better parent than she is, to the extent that the courts can see it and cannot deny that you are the superior parent, you may never see them alive again. This is if you're pro-black or not, but if you are pro-black, your chances of raising black children that the community would actually need, that are actually your kids, actually decrease because Western sisters, because swag. So in the end, the behavior that killed Western black love, for which this is a funeral, also drove away us black men in general. And this is where the non-demise of the black man comes in. The Western black man is not going extinct or dying off, and neither is the non-Western black man. So while this funeral and eulogy are being combined, the funeral is for one and the eulogy is for the other. Because the eulogy comes based on the changing and the transformation of Western black men into something else, not death. We are now becoming international black men, no longer limited to being Western black men. We are becoming BMPTs. Get your notebooks and your pens out. It means black male passport travelers, and this includes SYSBM, Passport Bros, Passport Gang, and IBMOR. I may have even forgotten an acronym, and I apologize to any whose acronyms I forgot. We got some work to do, so while we have in fact improved on how we relate to each other, evidenced by how much better we have gotten at showing respect to each other in the absence of seeking that ever evasive Western black female validation, we still have to get even more accustomed to it and more comfortable doing so. And to a greater extent, because part of us still doesn't want to do anything to make ourselves the least attractive man in the room in front of Western sisters, even when it's supposed to be just men. We have to continue to rise in this new understanding of ours until we realize that, frankly, the validation of Western sisters is actually a bad sign in general. See, while Abby might have thought I hated black women blanketly, the truth is deeper and more nuanced. She herself was brainwashed to never validate a man in her life, and she admitted not to the brainwashing, but to never having validated a man in her life. But the same women that created that socialization amongst other women, including to her in her direction, have always validated, pursued, and even chased and paid for the men they just have to have. And they feel perfectly fine about doing that as long as they can tell other women that the justifications are either they're using the guy for something, other women want him too, or he's got street cred and stereotypical swag for which other women will want him. So since this is what we're dealing with, and now we're learning this, we have learned not to seek that anymore, but we're still trying to avoid the opposite of it, and this is a part of what is holding us back a little bit still. We aren't wrong for wanting to maintain a modicum of respect from each other, but we're wrong when we're hypersensitive to the opposite of that, which is a carryover of the hyena matriarch's upbringing and socialization. We can still hear mama and an ex-girlfriend in our inner ear saying, "You gonna let him say that to you? You just gonna let him talk like that? Ain't you a man?" And this is subconscious, but it's still there. And it's decreasing, thankfully, but we need to speed up its demise so that we can fully not only know what to do ourselves and how to discuss it, but also know what to tell these young black boys within earshot to liberate their minds and end this culture being called culture that is already spreading elsewhere to our detriment. This is the next step, understanding the level of militancy we must have against even the vestiges and smell of that dysfunctional, hyena-pleasing, pseudo-masculine, really low-vibrational machismo and N19 culture that will hold us back even after we have left the West as individuals. Otherwise, it will be waiting on the other side of baggage claim, which is already being witnessed in some locations, and I'll explain this. And shouts out to Passport OG for discussing this twice within the past week, the second time being within about an hour of me recording this. One of the tactics of our enemies that want us BMPTs stuck with them, these gynocrat hyenas, is to try to export their ratchetry through international media so that it will be present in the destinations to which we go. Understand that at one time we looked at our media and we did not understand how often it was being exported internationally because there was a long delay. Movies released in the US took a while to reach Greece and Italy and the nations in Africa and the Caribbean. Took a while, long time. The problem is that nowadays movies are released immediately in cinemas worldwide. This is right off of the bat. It is no coincidence that as our understanding of this increased, that sisters' debauchery also increased on camera. They have done this so that the ratchetry would be present in the destinations to which we go, but also in the hopes that the less feminine, less equality, more liberal, and more ratchetry-prone women of these destinations would gravitate to us to replace the local men they can't get because of what they may have already done. This is another tactic of theirs, another hope of theirs, another goal. They've already stated that when we go there, we're getting the leftover women, and that's not been true. So now they're thinking, well, you know what? If we step up acting a particular way just to embarrass these men and give them a bad reputation, you know what? It will become true. Some would say, well, you're overestimating them. They're not really thinking that far. It is true that the one's actually doing the twerking or not, but someone's calling the shots at a subconscious level, and that party is thinking that far. They're playing the long game. We do need to protect our reputation. We don't need to obsess about how we're being viewed, but we do need to protect the reputation that we've got. As Passport OG said, we do need to genuinely be against the dysfunction we're leaving behind. And I mean all of the way against it, so that instead of obsessing instead of needing to obsess about our reputation later on, we would actually just be in the right, and it would be common knowledge amongst people of those destinations who meet us in person and don't only see us on TV that we aren't there looking for their hyenas. that means their hyenas know not to come seeking us out. Just because we might like them darker than the local men won't mean that we want them imitating Kansas City Keisha or Memphis Matriarch. We're already going abroad in large enough numbers, so all we have to do is be our best, but that best does require a bit more deprogramming. We already are masculine and manly, and this is known, so we need not maintain any of the stereotypical knuckle-dragging machismo that isn't even authentic manhood, of which we have already proven capability, not even attempting to. We have actually proven to be role models in this regard, and many times by people who have gotten to know us up close and personal. See, we forget at times that difference. We're seen as examples of masculinity and manhood and role models of it, but we keep forgetting this, and at each of the times we forget, we will unwittingly fall into the sin of helping Westernicians in their propaganda against us. Let's continue in our current internationalization, that transformation for the better, but acceleratedly so that way we can continue burying the culture that Sapphire followed when she killed Western black love, for which this is the funeral. Let's continue going against the foolishness and immaturity at every turn we can detect it, so that we can earn more eulogies and deserve them, whether or not we actually get them in this life. Because if we don't get the compliments or credit we deserve in this life, best believe the Judge of Judges will give it on the day of resurrection, because he has promised that he will not oppress any soul he judges. So let's oppose and bury that culture of dysfunction so thoroughly that on that last day, that king, that judge, will have his own eulogy of us to voice just by going through the record of what we did for future generations. Now that eulogy is a topic for another recording and on another day, but if you want to know more about that, I invite you to ask the features about it on YouTube. In the meantime, I think that what I've said, I hope that what I've said really helps, and I mean that from the bottom of my black heart, from the depths of my black mind when I say it. Thank you for listening. As always, black heart, black mind, black out. Assalamu alaikum. Black heterosexual, non-select male power. Black BMPT power, just because they don't like it. Black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day. Thank you for sitting through another episode of Black Manosphere Show of the Week, and thank you for flying with us on Jet Black Airways, where Jet Black is also a verb. If you have not done so already, don't forget to punch the Cash App button on your way out of the Jet Black aircraft. Keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender justice forever.